Whew, I wasn't ready for that. But whoever really is. And then I remember as we're there, my wife Jamie, she's never seen snow before. And ironically, it starts snowing there. And this is her first moment of seeing snow and experiencing snow. But the reason why that she's experiencing the snow wasn't comforting for her. It wasn't enjoyable for her. It wasn't enjoyable for any of us. And then came the funeral, and Mandy asked me to say some things and speak at the funeral. Of course, I was going to do that regardless. This is my brother. And it was in that moment that I started to think. I know we all grieve differently, and I know we all handle death differently. And there's so many different stages of grief. And immediately I was very angry. But then I started to think that I had my brother for my entire life, 56 years. And I started to reflect back on the things that Gary taught me. And I started to reflect back on the memories, the good memories that we had together. When we lose someone we love, we have to learn not to live without them, but to live with the love they left behind. I started thinking about his love for music. Yes, his love for music. All that started from my mom, and the way my mom's love for music, and the way she would play music all the time, especially on Saturday mornings as we're cleaning the house. But my brother was a little ridiculous, because if there was one song that he really enjoyed, you would hear that song over and over and over again. And it was those things that started to lift me up. And I started to realize, wait a minute, I have this power within to change my whole perspective on this. And here I am, a hope ambassador, help open people's eyes. And I started thinking about holding on to positive experiences. Yes, holding on to positive experiences. And so I started to just cherish these moments and reflect back on the things that I actually learned from my brother. Like, there's a story that I've used over and over again in my leadership development, not just in my leadership development of others, but in personal development of myself and others as well. I started thinking about this story. I had a big wheel. Okay, I had this big wheel, and this was my pride and joy, this big wheel. And I remember being a little kid growing up in the projects, Cedric houses, and I bring the big wheel upstairs, and we're on the 11th floor, and I leave it outside. This was summertime. I was just coming up to get a snack or a drink or something like that, just real quick. And to my surprise and dismay, I opened up our apartment door to find there's no big wheel parked outside in the hallway. And I'm looking down the hallway. I'm like, yo, where's my big wheel? And I come inside and I look real quick, thinking that maybe I brought it in there and didn't remember, but that wasn't the case. And I started boo-hoo crying. I remember Gary saying, "What are you crying about?" And I said, "Someone took my big wheel." And in his classic way, he said, "Why would you give your big wheel to somebody else to take? That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen." That was just a tremendous lesson, because as I grew older, the big wheel was a metaphor for me as to why would you give your joy up to somebody else to take away instead of maintaining your joy. And so that was classic for me. That was classic. Another thing that I learned tremendously from my brother was that he was able to see people as people. And he taught me early on, he said, "Troy," he said, "everybody's a human being, regardless of what their status or title is. Everyone is a human being. We all bleed the same. We all go to the bathroom. We all do the similar things. Do not allow someone's title or their name intimidate you because they're the same as you." And that was big for me. And I was a teenager when he dropped that in my lap. That was big. And Gary also taught me by modeling this entrepreneurial spirit that he had, and the grind and the work ethic. It was just crazy. And as he modeled those things for me, those are things that I took into my life and I have applied. And to this day, especially in this season right now of transitioning out of corporate America and building my own speaking, consulting, and coaching and training business, that grind that he modeled for me is within me, and it's helping guide me right now. How ironic is that?